Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Hopefully, everyone can hear me all right. Don't hesitate to pop a comment into the chat if, for whatever reason, one of us is having audio issues or anything like that. Uh, Thanks for your patience as we're getting started. Obviously, this is a topic that everyone is on the top of everyone's mind, and uh, conversational AI and the future of search is definitely going to be important moving forward as paid search marketers really try to navigate how do we look at this new world, and how do we create the best advertising experience possible. So I am really excited to introduce our speakers for today. My name is Katie Porter, and I'm over all of our content here at Marin One. And sorry, before I get to that to our speakers, I just want to introduce who we are really quickly. We've been, Marin Software has been in the advertising automation industry for almost 20 years now, basically as long as it's been possible to be in this industry. So we really focus on automation, saving time, making campaign management as simple as possible for all kinds of advertisers in search, social, and display. So these are just some of the partners that we work with, Microsoft, of course, being one of them. So we're really happy to have Microsoft here with us today. And James Murray is our guest from Microsoft. He's a product marketing manager for the Microsoft Ads EMEA team. And then we have Wesley MacLaggan here today, who's the CMO here at Marin One. Both of them have extensive experience in advertising and paid search at large. So without without much ado, we want to just dive right into the content. We were sort of joking as we were preparing for this webinar that really this could easily be like a 2-hour session, and nobody has that kind of time. So we're going to try to be concise and get through things quickly here. But that is where we're starting for now, and I'll first jump to asking a question over to Wes. Wes, I just wanted, like I was saying, we kind of laid that foundation of us all being excited about ChatGPT and conversational AI overall, but having that discussion of how it affects search, the search engine results page has been evolving for quite a while, from a bunch of blue links to now a mobile-friendly multimedia experience. Can you tell us a little bit more about the evolution of search and how we've gotten to where we are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, with any new technology, with any progress, it's really important to ground ourselves in, how we've gotten here and what has happened in the past. And, it's easy to take for granted that not that many years ago, when you looked at a search page, it was pretty basic. It was a bunch of links, and it was pretty clear how people would, interact with those. And then, like you said, that's evolved. We've gotten, visual search. So instead of being completely text-based, you started to see products showing up. You saw faceted navigation for whether you're looking for images or products or websites. Personalization came in, things like knowledge panels where it's bringing the answer directly to that page. You see localized results with maps. There's all these kind of innovations that we're used to because we've been using them every day. But it's something that is, really, really a constant evolution. And Microsoft and Google, they do a great job in trying to make it easier for the users to get answers. I think if you look at Microsoft, Bing recipes is an interesting example of this, where if you search for a recipe, rather than having to go into a long blog post with a recipe that's got a lot of ads in it, they're actually like bringing the recipe straight to the SERP page. And so getting directly to that answer, the user directly to that answer more quickly is, I think an important goal. And I think that's something that we as advertisers need to think about. And, the other trend that I think has been going on is the goal of, or it's Google has obviously dominated search for a long time, but we're in a world that it's not just Google anymore. Obviously with the rise of Amazon, you've got, if you're searching for a product, you're going to a lot of people will go start their search on Amazon. If you're under 25 and you're looking for a place to eat, you may start your search on TikTok. And so when we think about search, I think we need to think of it more broadly than just the traditional search engine results page. And I guess the question that I would turn to James on this topic is, we're excited about chat. We've seen what Microsoft has done with Bing Chat, and it's really interesting. Is this kind of a continuation of this evolution, or is this a new world, a new paradigm that we need to think about differently?
Yeah, great question. And firstly, thank you so much for having me on to come share some of the stuff about the innovations that we have. I think, it's both, right? Is the quick way to talk about it. It is an evolution of the advancements and some of the things that you have been talking about, but it is a new paradigm and a completely new way of thinking about search. I think, I have a few sort of slides and things to sort of showcase here, but first up, I think is to show that we don't think that sort of chat is going to completely eradicate the need to have the traditional search experience. And so here I've got an example where someone is searching for something which is actually a very detailed and complicated search for arts and crafts ideas for things to do with their toddler. And you can see how what we're doing is trying to blend both the traditional search experience with things that we're familiar with, whether those are product ads or sort of organic links to things that you can do with ideas that answer this question. But we're also starting to introduce the chat, which is bringing in a sort of a more nuanced and a better understanding of what it is that people are asking for. And I think what's so exciting here is that why it's a new paradigm is that the contextual understanding of the AI is so good that we're actually able to increase relevance and improve sort of the user experience to a completely new sort of dynamic where we're getting people to the information that they're really after.
Yeah, I think one of the stats that you mentioned when we were preparing for this was that, based on Microsoft research, 40% of the time people click on a result, they're immediately clicking back to the cert page, which I think indicates that they haven't found what they're looking for. With chat, I think what you're pointing out is it's giving you better tools to get people the answers they're looking for in a different ways. I think we had an example that you wanted to illustrate that where it's getting the user to the information they're looking for a little bit more quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's it. The goal of search engines has always been about how do we connect people with the information that they need. And so what chat is doing now in the new sort of functionality is really thinking about how do we get you to the correct answer in a swifter, better way. So here I have an example where I'm searching for multimedia ads, which is a product that Microsoft Advertising offers. I want to find out what are the benefits of this product. You saw that I searched just for multimedia ads, and I clicked on the first link, which is typically what people do. And even though there's loads of really useful information that I'm scrolling through here in this blog post about multimedia ads, actually getting to the answer that I want, which is what is multimedia ads and what are the key benefits, is quite hard. So here's where something where chat can actually become, the experience can become really helpful. I can ask a very natural language question, and it will start to browse the web at large, but it will start to summarize that information and bring me the results which I need in order to answer my question. So here I've asked, what are multimedia ads and what are the key benefits? And you'll see that what it's doing is summarizing information from the Microsoft page, but also putting the key benefits actually into bullet points for me so I can very quickly see what the answer is that I'm looking for. And then if I refine my search, I can say, okay, do you have any Microsoft case studies for this product? Now what it's going to do is start sort of browsing again, but for a different part of the website where we're looking specifically for case studies. In this case, it understands because of what we've asked previously in the previous question that we're still talking about multimedia ads. And so it's come up and it's found information which we then link to, which is encouraging you as the user to click through. And when you click through, you get exactly where you need to. You can click on this article, which is for the case study that we have, and you can read all about the benefits and how this company used this product in order to improve their advertising. So I think what you're kind of seeing there is how we are starting to make the search experience just better and easier for users, where it's able to take queries, summarize the information, but guide you to the correct answers, rather than you as the user having to try to like reiterate and refine the keywords that you use in order to try and navigate to the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think the natural language aspect of that is of course super interesting. We've all done that dance where we're trying to find, what are the right 3 keywords to type in. And I think we'll come back to, user behavior and how advertisers should react to that a little bit later in the conversation. I guess, given our audience here is digital marketers, people who are trying to connect with their prospects, their customers using search. How do you think this is going to impact the way we approach paid search advertising? So that's a great illustration of the user perspective. But if we get into an example where, let's say that I'm a travel company and I want to see, I'm trying to get customers for my travel packages, like how am I going to get in front of users? Where are ads going to be incorporated in this experience?
Yeah. So I think what we want to showcase actually in this next example is 2 things. One is a little bit about how we're thinking about the advertising. And I think one of the first things to say is that this experience is still incredibly nascent, and we're developing it and iterating on it all the time. It's been live really and available to the public for only about 3 months. And we wanted to embed advertising in it from the very beginning. But we also didn't want to over sort of populate with ads. So what you see today might well change, but we show you some of the sort of the core experience of what the ads look like today within the chat experience. The second thing is that idea of how do you make getting to the right piece of information and the right answers when you have super complex queries is really challenging. And again, that sort of the conversational understanding of the chat is pretty phenomenal. So I like to think of someone like my mum. She's in her 70s. She's never been good at being able to use search engines to get what she wants, because she types this huge sort of long query often, which a typical, like up until now, a search engine has just not been able to deal with. All right, so let's take travel as an example. And so if for my family, so there's me and my wife, we've got 2 kids, we're traveling with my mum and dad. Like, this is the kind of experience that my mum would typically type into a search engine. She'd be saying, I'm looking for a holiday for a family with 4 adults and 2 children. It should be somewhere which is nice and hot, but no more than 3 hours flight from Heathrow, which is close to where we live in London. I need something fun to do with the kids, and there should also be cultural sort of sites for the adults to experience. Now, I think we know that if today we put that into sort of traditional search, that's such a long and complex query that it's almost impossible to get meaningful results out of it. What's amazing about the sort of the new chat is that it can actually understand the context of that very long, very complex query and can start serving relevant information and results based on what you've asked for. So you'll see in here that it's starting to list how far it takes to get to some of these different places. And then here you see one of the travel packages ads for Love Holidays. So this is where we've listed all of the information, but we've also taken relevant ads to this specific query in order to surface them. So then if I sort of refine my search and say, of those options which you've given me, which is the cheapest? Now it's going to start to look at some of those travel packages and start to come up with an idea for me. Now, I haven't specified when I want to travel, but it's going to say based on, a 7-night stay in July, on the number of people that I specified with the 4 adults, 2 kids, here's some of the packages available. And you'll see this idea of us using citations, and then you'll see in the rollover here, we'll always cite both the where we get the information from, but you also see ads showing up there, and those ads come from what would be the mainline 1 sort of option in the traditional search experience. We're bringing that into the chat as well. Now I want to sort of refine a bit more, and so what I'm asking is, tell me more about what I can do with the kids in Corfu. So now we're sort of zoning in and narrowing in a little bit more on specific activities that we can do in a specific place. So here we're starting to generate lots of interesting things that I can do with experiences where I can take them to water parks and aquariums. I can go horse riding. I can go on a boat ride. And all of the time we're getting either links to more information if I want to click through, but we're also getting prompts for more questions about what are these things which are most appealing and how can this help. So now I'm going to ask for something a bit tricky. So what I want to do here is say, can you list me some of the trackable packages and put the various pros and cons of those travel packages into a table? So what I want you to imagine is thinking about how long would it take you as a consumer to do this much research and put it into the perfect sort of template of the information structured the way that you want. Here, what we're seeing very quickly is how we can start to reduce that sort of research time and give you information that you need based on what it is that you're looking for. So you can see some of the benefits and some of the negatives there, which are associated with asking for those experiences. And so the idea, I think, here is that we're going to continue to expand sort of how ads show up. You saw two instances there, one with the sort of the rollover text ad and one with the sort of a tours and activity ad, which was more visual. And we'll continue to sort of iterate and play with that as we start to see more people using the chat.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think a couple observations there. First, there are some familiar ad formats that show up. When you do those citations, they look like the kind of text ads that maybe we've been used to working with, and it's good to see that will continue. Paid and organic continues to kind of live side by side, right? So both aspects of your marketing program, making sure that you're touching on both of those is going to be important. And then three, I really wonder, as we start to get more traffic coming through chat, if advertisers need to think about those users a little bit differently, because they're likely to be more qualified, more engaged, because the brilliance of search has always been that the user is typing in their intent in that little box on the screen. Now with chat, you've given a lot more detail, and so exactly how to serve that user, and there's a great opportunity to to get them where they need even more quickly than you would if you knew they were looking for a trip but didn't really know the details of that, whether it's family or not. Like all of that comes in as part of that signal from chat. So I think it's going to be interesting to kind of keep an eye on that traffic a little bit differently.
Yeah, for sure. I think so one of the things that we're seeing from sort of early adoption usage of this is that like a couple of things. A few things which are probably not surprising. So one is that the average query length of a chat experience is 3 times the length of a standard sort of query length. That's not surprising given the sort of, you can see how much more complicated and conversational you can make the chat questions. Secondly, that people are really sort of changing the nature of their searches to be more conversation and sort of question based. So people are asking more of the like, how do I do this? How much is this? Why does this happen? And so on. What we're seeing on average, though, which is perhaps more surprising, is that although the number of queries is going up, but the actual sort of path to conversion is going down. So people are asking more questions, but they're getting to conversions quicker. And I think the big thing to take away for advertisers is that click-through rate in the chat experience is 3 times that of what we see on average in terms of traditional search. And on average, people are spending about 2/3 longer in chat than they do in traditional search. So what that suggests to us is that people are taking their time, they're spending more time, and that surfaces more opportunity for ads to show. But also, once they have been through that process, they're more sort of willing to click through, and they're getting to a more relevant result. And so that means that those users who have gone through that funnel are much more likely to be sort of a high quality converting audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that 40% of people clicking back and the 3 times the click-through rate are kind of related, right? You're getting a higher click-through rate because it's more relevant, and so you're going to have less people kind of back and forth, clicking on ads that aren't quite relevant for them, and getting to the right answer more quickly, which is great.
And hopefully what that should do ultimately is it sort of makes your budgets more efficient, because rather than people clicking on ads, realizing that that wasn't quite what they wanted and clicking back, and actually you potentially wasted budget on something which was not what the user wanted. When people do click through, they click through with greater intent.
So that's a great review of what the ads experience might look like. As we talk to the audience here, who is going to be, having to acquire customers through this new experience, like what are they? What does the future look like for them? What is the experience of being a search engine marketer? How's that going to evolve? What do they need to be thinking about over the next months and quarters?
Yeah. But I think there's a few things. My top tip really is that if you're not already sort of investing in some of the kind of like AI infused or AI empowered products that you have available to you through Bing, but also through Google and other search engines, you're missing out on the opportunity to make the most of these products. So what I mean by that is, if you think about things like DSA, RSA, broad match, the capability and the explosion of these keywords means that more than ever now you're going to have to rely on how do you find the gaps in your current keyword selection as it becomes less sort of keyword centric. But also I think things like automated bidding and some of the new visual sort of formats, so things like image extensions, multimedia ads, and some of the sort of the vertical product experiences, like that travel example that we showed. If you're not using those, then you're definitely sort of restricting your capability to show up in this chat experience. And so I think the goal really for the next few months is to start making sure that you're making the most of what we already have, and the chat experience really right now mirrors as closely as possible the sort of the ad experience of the traditional SERP. As we start to sort of develop it further, those may start to sort of differentiate. But right now, using those products gives you the greatest chance of sort of showing up. But I think the other thing to say is also like marketers shouldn't be panicking about having to completely fundamentally change all of their sort of plans to accommodate this, right? So I often get asked things like, should we be rewriting our ads to make them more conversational? I think the answer there is no. The whole thing, whether you're doing it from a paid perspective or an SEO perspective, is you should still just be writing for the consumer. Don't try and write for the AI algorithm. It will be able to understand what you're doing if you write great copy or great ad text or whatever for consumers.
Great. No, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, I think, the evolution, paid search has been evolving for a while, and keywords, the role keywords play has been changing. I think one of the things that in a world where people are used to looking at search query reports and looking at negatives and expanding new keywords, I think what I'm hearing you say is there is just necessarily going to need to be an increased reliance on the AI, right? So you need to be investing in broad match, because you're just not going to be able to cover all of the different types of queries that people are looking for in the same way that the AI that's understanding the chat, understanding the context, knows what to be looking for. I think you gave a great example yesterday in our chat of like, to continue the travel thread, I want something that's hot but not too hot, right? So, or 3 hours from Heathrow, or things like that you just may not have on the radar as the type of things that as a travel company you should be bidding on, but the AI is making that connection. And so using those more AI-driven ads, both broad match as well as the dynamic and responsive search ads, that's what you're giving the ability for Microsoft and the other search engines to make the connection between what you're offering and what the customer is actually looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, sometimes this comes with a degree of nervousness, and ceding control is always sort of tough. But I think there's sort of a couple of things to kind of hopefully reassure people who are listening. So first of all, if you do have very sort of like strict things that you do, or particularly if you're working in industries where you have regulations which you have to abide by, if you have sort of negatives in your keywords for your campaigns, those are still sort of honored in the chat experience. So you're not going to suddenly start going for things that you shouldn't. And for things where, like in the finance industry, for example, if you have things like disclaimers, those will also come through from the ads that you already have approved in the system for traditional. I think when people sort of hear sort of broad match and stuff, you know, everybody's had at some point a bad experience with broad match, with us, with Google, with, you know, so, and I think the thing is, like, now that understanding of language, training the AI on those large language models, which is the essence of where we've got to with this new conversational search, is so much better. We've seen the biggest leap in relevance in the last 2 decades because of the fact that it's able to compute and understand so much better. So things like broad match just organically get better because of the natural language understanding that is built into these AI tools.
That's great. This is maybe a little bit out there, but I think as consumers get more used to chat as the UI for, you know, looking for things, is that going to want, it seems like they're going to want to carry that into the actual interaction. So rather than going through the chat and then you just end up back on a normal website, continuing the conversation in that chat format to actually execute the purchase or whatever they're trying to accomplish is a big opportunity out there. And I was just looking at a blog post from you guys from the last week or so talking about, you know, the concept of add-ins or add-ons, or I think you may call it Microsoft Actions as well, where, you know, companies are going to be able to kind of link up to that chat and you know, complete the transaction through that somehow. Can you talk a little bit about where that, how that might evolve? I know we're early days on that, but would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so it is super early days, and we're trying to think. I can easily imagine a scenario where you're providing that we can do it in a sort of data compliant, privacy compliant way, that all of the sort of the history that we learn from not just a single chat, but as we start to introduce sort of like persistent chats as particularly for a longer purchase, where you might be sort of thinking about it and chatting with the AI over several sessions, that we end up personalizing the recommendation in a way that is super relevant to you, being able to share some of that sort of information with the sort of the end advertiser who would benefit from that, in order to cut out having to repeatedly ask the same sort of questions. It's like pre-filling things for when you go on to renew your insurance or something. Being able to do that, I think, makes sense, providing that we can do so in a way which is privacy compliant, and so long as users understand the exchange that they get of the value they get from exchanging their data in that way, I think that could be really interesting. We're also just thinking about so we're not just thinking of how do we do this for ourselves, and so one of the things that we've announced is how websites or publishers who are using sort of chat interface on their sites, how they can use our systems to be able to integrate ads into their own systems as well. So if they're investing in chat and some of these new technologies, how they can have ads sort of come through as well, in order to make it a sort of a wider overall ecosystem and start to use some of the benefits for themselves. So I can see how this would definitely go beyond, you know, what we see today. Unfortunately, it's still super early days, and we're just starting to scratch the surface of some of what those ideas could look like. I think the main thing is that we're not trying to pretend that we've got all of the solutions mapped out. We're really interested in hearing from clients how they could take this technology and apply it in their own ways to go and create a solution that we could never have thought of by ourselves.
Yeah, I love the example. You know, as technology progresses, one of the talk tracks you'll hear is, you know, the first thing you do with the technology is kind of recreate the same experiences that you're doing what you're already doing, just in a maybe a little faster or a little bit better way. And it takes a little while to develop, what are the chat native experiences that weren't really possible before. So I think, what this looks like 5 years from now is going to be very different than what it looks like today. And, for marketers who are, excited about this, or for those who are freaking out, I think the message is that it's going to take a while to transition. And while we should all be experiencing it and playing with it and starting to think about it, it's not like this is changing overnight, or things are going to be transforming instantly. So we've got some time. But on that theme, I mean, as a marketer myself, I spend a lot of time exploring this, because I think this is a new set of tools that we have. And I think we talked a lot about what the search advertising experience, how that's going to evolve. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on using these tools ourselves. So outside of the AI built into chat, are there other things that you would think about, other recommendations that you would have for everybody on how they should be thinking about using AI or in the course of their broader marketing workflows?
Yeah. So I think one of the amazing things that this technology sort of enables and empowers us to do is to kind of become better marketers, more creative, and it is a tool, but it's an incredible tool to really sort of aid with your creativity. I think, really the promise of AI so far has been, we'll help you automate certain things in order to make sure that you have time freed up to be creative, whereas now we're actually helping you be more creative in and of itself. So, here we have an example. I get asked a lot right now to talk about this kind of stuff and come up with presentations. So writing sometimes sort of like the 15th synopsis for a presentation about this can get quite boring. So for me, I'm asking Bing to help me come up with a title and a description for a presentation that I have coming up. Because we are talking about this in the context of AI as a co-pilot, that's quite an important theme that I want to include in the description. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of a framework and say that AI, the description should talk about how AI can be a creative partner. So I think one of the things is, if you're kind of suffering from writer's block, or you're struggling for inspiration, sometimes working from a blank page is really hard. But if you have something in front of you, being able to edit something which is already there is really, really useful. So you start to see like what the AI is coming up with is actually a really good synopsis of a presentation, and it gives me some ideas of how I can start to think about what are the key things that I'm going to touch on, and some of the language that I'm going to use to describe it. And so, even if it's not perfect, and I think this is actually really pretty good, like this is a great starting point for me to sort of think about how I can start sort of editing and composing that. And it's not just limited to the synopses for presentations, but you can ask it to compose sort of emails for you. It can write sort of blog copy, all kinds of things. And so I think as we expand this as well, you'll start to see through other Microsoft products being able to build presentation decks and all kinds of things. These are all tools to help empower you become more creative and better at your job. I think, again, this, like, people are potentially see this and will freak out, but just know that, with every technology that's ever been created, people freak out. When Microsoft first created clip art, there were news headlines that this would be the death of the creative industry, because why would we ever need to draw anything again when Microsoft Word gives you these like clip arts that allows you to do it for free? And obviously, like that future hasn't come to pass. So, I think of this as a tool that can enable you to do more and can empower you to be better at your job, rather than as a sort of a threat to the job that you currently do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I heard this yesterday on the Marketing Over Coffee podcast, but they talked about AI as augmented intelligence, right? So how do you use this as a power tool that helps you get your job done faster and better? And I've found that in various applications, from coming up with new headlines, rewriting keywords, putting together presentations, even on the visual side, using some of the generative AI tools like Midjourney to come up with visualize ideas where I can type in a short description and get some things that aren't ready for use in a creative or anything like that, but they're a great seed for discussion that I can then have with my designer in a way that me trying to sketch something out on a whiteboard just couldn't quite accomplish in the same way. So I think that incorporating these as part of our workflows, thinking of them as power tools for the marketers is an important aspect of all of our futures.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's again a lot of discussions about things like generative AI being used for sort of image creation. And so, but again, I would say like what this should do is overall sort of lower the bar of entries to make everybody better. So I think you've just given the perfect example. Is like if you try and sketch something out and you don't have great drawing skills, that's going to be really tricky for you. But in exactly the same way that again when something like Photoshop came along, people were like, again, this will be the death of the creative industry. No one will need to do sort of like design and drawing again. Actually, what's happened is that the creative industry has taken this tool in order to improve their craft. And so I think that's sort of what we're going to see is that AI is going to just be infused into so many different things that we do that makes everybody just incrementally better at their craft.
Great. I hate to interrupt here with so much good conversation going on, but we do just have a few minutes left of the scheduled time. There were a few kind of final questions or thoughts that we for sure wanted to get to. So I'm going to direct the conversation back over to Wes really quickly, just to kind of give us that more omni-channel paid search perspective. And Wes, I'm curious, as we've talked about all these different Microsoft components, how people can use AI in relation to Microsoft, what's coming up for you, both in paid and organic search, as far as how paid media managers ought to adapt? How should they change their tactics or strategy moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's a balance of old and new, right? We want to think about what isn't changing here. There's still a certain audience that we're going after. There's still a target customer set, and making sure that we really understand that we're really reaching the relevant audiences where they play and where they are going to be most impacted by your message is an important part of this. So I think as Bing has gotten a lot of attention and people are checking out using Bing in a way they haven't been before, making sure that you're reaching your customers there and you've got your campaigns built out on the Bing side is an important part of that. So think about where you're going to find your audience, making sure you're matching the right message to the right audience. Things that have been true for marketing for a long time. But I think the other part of that is I would reemphasize James' point about automation. That this is just too complex to try and think you can do this by hand, and that's where some of the newer ad formats, you leveraging broad match and giving that another shot, testing that out to see if it's not the broad match that you knew from 5 or 10 years ago, and it's okay to give the AI a little bit of room to explore that and prove itself. I think is an important that.
Great.
And then
I think you answered it. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. I think you answered it a little bit just now, but just to kind of drive that point home, how is Marin One particularly utilizing AI to make advertising automation more efficient? How does this play back into the advertising space?
Yeah, absolutely. So, at Marin, we make a platform, Marin One, that helps advertisers automate, optimize, and analyze their digital marketing program. So we do this across search, social, e-commerce, app advertising. And we've been around for 20 years helping advertisers work smarter, not harder, leveraging technology to do the heavy lifting to get better performance out of that. And so we see these new tools as a natural step in a process and a journey that we've been on for a long time. And what I would say is that our team of experts has been helping our customers navigate the evolving landscape across digital marketing And we're, that's really one of the big things that we can help bring to the table in addition to our platform is we can work with you to get the most out of this. As James said in early days, it's early days of the, what chat is going to look like, how this generative AI will impact marketers, and we will work with you to navigate these changes, to be there side by side, and to get the most out of these new ad formats. We've also been exploring how chat and generative AI can influence the marketer's workflow upstream. So using it for ideation on ad copy, on keywords, on creative, on customization and tailoring your message to different audience. All of those things are things that we've got underway, and I think we'll have a lot of exciting announcements over the course of the year on how that will be impacting marketers. But if this is an area that you are interested in exploring more, we'd love to have a chat. If you want to reach out to us, reach out to marin1.info/learn more, or you can scan the QR code there on screen. Or if you have any questions, you can always email marketing@marinsoftware.com. I want to thank James and all of our partners at Microsoft for taking the time out of their busy day to walk through this with us. And I think this is a really exciting journey that we're all on together. And I know that I'm super excited about the future of how this is going to be impacting the industry. So stay tuned for plenty more on this topic from us.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for coming today. Sorry I was muted for a moment, and everyone have a great day. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.